Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first ever episode of the Handbags, Manbags, Bumbags podcast. The World Class Waffle is now no more. We have decided as a group that we needed to change things up because of the more sporting approach that we have been taking the last few weeks. And the name World Class Waffle doesn't really justify what we're trying to do anymore. So, Handbags, Manbags, Bumbags is what we will be known as for the foreseeable future. It's come after a legendary quote from my favourite football manager of all time, Sean Dyche, who said this memorable quote in a post-match interview in a 2-2 draw against Chelsea back in 2018, where David Luiz also quoted in that same game that Burnley played anti-football. But we'll gloss over that at a later date. But you'll notice that we've got no John again. Unfortunately, John couldn't be with us this week. I don't really know his excuse, seeing as we're all in the same room or in the same flat now, which makes recording a lot easier further down the line. But Handbags, Manbags, Bumbags is now launched, and we are looking forward to seeing what different content we can create over the next coming weeks. But for this week, which corresponds from the Twitter polls that have been going out last week on our Twitter, which will be changing and we will update at the end of the episode. But this week's episode, to launch the Handbags, Manbags, Bumbags, we're going to be giving our stance on the little tournament we've been running on Twitter. We're running kind of like a Premier League Manager World Cup almost, where I've done a random draw on some dodgy app or something. I don't know what it was, but anyhow, we've got a round robin tournament almost, and it's a knockout phase. So at the end of it, we've got well, obviously there's 20 Premier League managers. For the sake of this, we have had to include Chris Wilder, even though he was sacked a couple of weeks ago. Which, if you haven't listened to that episode, go back and listen to episode 15, where we talked all things Chris Wilder's sacking. But for the sake of this, to make it easier, and so we've not got any buys, Chris Wilder is included, and he is in one of the prelim games. So we've got 4 prelim games, which will decide who goes into the final 16. And then I presume everyone will know how a tournament works. It just then goes rolling down until we get to a winner. But let's dive in to the episode.
How traditional are we going with this? Does Solskjaer have to lose in the semis by default?
Yeah, and do Tottenham or Arsenal have to finish in 4th? But anyhow,
or if Tottenham get to the final, they have to lose.
Yeah, but
that might age badly depending on how the Carabao Cup final goes next week. But
it'll be interesting, which we could well preview in a later episode. But who knows? Yeah. But now, by the looks of it, Mourinho's got a tough draw ahead of him. But don't count anything out when us two are voting on it. But Twitter has decided, and I know who Twitter has voted. There might be a bit of bias towards it because I know, me being from Leicester, I think a lot of people from the city that I know have voted for Monsieur Rodgers, but we'll see what we think as a group. But let's dive straight into things as the Handbags, Manbags, Bumbags presents the World Cup of Premier League Managers.
More handbags, manbags, bumbags, some kind of.
And let's just run through a few T's and C's for this tournament. So we will be voting on persona on the touchline, so how they come across, how boisterous they are towards the 4th official, how they encourage their team, whether it works or whether it doesn't, what they wear on the touchline, so that how good their tracksuits look or the suits they wear or whatever they wear. And if the worst comes to the worst, we'll have to rate them on overall attractiveness. But we don't really want to be getting into that part because it looks strange. But never mind. Let's carry on with the first prelim game that was put onto Twitter, which was game number 1, which is Chris Wilder versus Scott Parker. So Sheffield United versus Fulham. I mean, in normal terms, I think both of them are getting relegated. But in terms of this, in terms of for me, I think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, same. I think it will get quick unanimous decision on this one.
Yeah.
Scott Parker he has the reputation of the most attractive manager in the league.
Plainly because of that waistcoat alone and that stupid jacket he wore against Liverpool.
Yeah.
But that's just become sort of an icon for him now. And it's as much as I did like Chris Wilder's tracksuits that Sheffield United wear on the touchline, made by Adidas, you just don't get past Scott Parker's jacket that he wore at Anfield because that just will win anyway. I mean, yes, Chris Wilder's getting old if we have to rate on overall attractiveness, and Scott Parker's only just retired as a footballer. And if we're talking persona on the touchline, Scott Parker is quite vocal on the touchline from what I've seen watching Fulham. But overall, I think, well, we're both in agreement that Scott Parker will move on.
It's just a jacket for me. I didn't even start thinking about persona on the touchline.
Yeah,
it's jacket.
For me,
Julian Nagelsmann would have been proud of that one.
Yeah, so he will move into the last 16 stage. I'm just trying to see what Twitter voted on this. I believe that was, it's ironic actually. All the prelim games have actually tied, so I had to make a judgment. But the one I just put in for the sake of it was Chris Wilder, but he still lost to his opponent in the last 16. But the next prelim game that we'll go into is one with two good friends from their time in Germany. And it's Jurgen Klopp versus Ralph Hasenhüttl, the feeder club versus the parent club, in a way. Southampton versus Liverpool. And this is a tough one, I must be honest.
They look exactly the same.
They do look exactly the same. I mean, I feel there'll be a bit of bias from you towards Liverpool, being a Liverpool fan, but we've decided off air that we're going to try and be as non-biased as possible. But Sean Dyche is reaching the final.
If it's a Dyche v Klopp final, it's going to look really bad on us.
It is, seeing as we're now Dyche related. But for me, in terms of Klopp versus Hasenhüttl, yes, Klopp is probably one of the best managers in the country. There's no question about that, winning the title with Liverpool last year. But I don't know. I think I'm straying more towards Hasenhüttl.
I mean, we can't really do it on look on the touchline because they are literally the same thing. They are both pretty much tracksuit with a cap and maybe a coat on a cold day.
You see, for me, yes, they do look the exact same. But for me, Ralph Hasenhüttl pulls off a coat better than Klopp, and he pulls off a cap better than Klopp because Hasenhüttl, with that beard, especially that he's got now, he just looks hard.
You wouldn't want to take him on, would you?
It just looks hard as nail on the touchline. And for me, I think that's why I would put him through. I mean, yes, Southampton have had a few dodgy results as of late, with obviously a 9-0 loss at Old Trafford and a run of about 8 defeats in a row. But they keep sticking with him, and he can turn it around. And in this tournament that we're running, I think he goes through.
So it's definitely very close. I don't think we'll get a harder matchup than this. We've literally picked
especially
two
for a
people
prelim game.
Yeah, for a prelim game, we've picked two. Well, we'll say we've been drawn two people who look exactly the same. So quite difficult. But yeah, I think our side with you on Hasenhüttl just there's not really a major difference. And to be honest, there's not really. I don't really know what happens if me and you disagree because we need to have an overall winner. So I'd side with you.
We're going with Hasenhüttl.
Yeah.
Good news. Right, next one, we go to Tuchel versus Allardyce in the third prelim game. I know who I want this to be. Sam Allardyce for me.
Yeah, I'm agreed with Sam Allardyce. There's one key factor I think was leaning me towards him over Tuchel. I do like the all blue get up, but I think just the earpiece is just original. The earpiece.
You see, for me, I don't like
managers.
I don't like the all blue. That's what strays me towards Sam Allardyce. I mean, yes, Sam Allardyce looks like he's an MI5 spy with his earpiece in, but I just don't like Tuchel's all blue. And he wears a woolly hat in March. I mean, it's not that cold. Grow up.
It is. We live in Stoke.
Yes, he's German, and it is bloody freezing in Germany a lot of the time, but still, grow up.
To be fair, he's probably part of it might be covering up that hairline.
The hairline, yeah. I I think that's another deciding factor as well. That, come to think about it, that makes Allardyce firm favourite, and that's why we're putting him through.
Purely for the earpiece. It's purely the earpiece for me.
The earpiece wins it. I mean, it looks like an MI5 spy, and that, at the end of the day, that's always going to win.
I have a feeling that's not going to be the first time I say Allardyce purely because of the earpiece today.
Well, we'll see, because he is going up against a tough quarter-final, last 16 opponent. But the final prelim game is another quite tough one, actually, and it's Solskjaer versus Nuno. Now, I know who I would go with. They both wear similar attire on the touchline.
Yeah.
But for me, Nuno wins plainly because of the beard.
I was going to say the exact same thing.
I mean, you get a man that puts that much effort into growing a beard. It just has to. It's incredible work.
Yeah, I do have to say that I do like I'm quite traditional when it comes to managers. I like to see managers wearing the suits, which I'm not.
You see, Solskjaer doesn't wear a suit now. He just wears tracksuits.
Yeah.
That's why if he'd worn his suit, if he'd been wearing suits more, might have got it. But
exactly, that was the point I was going to make. Is say I like managers to wear a suit, and I think had he not switched to the tracksuit or over the last season or so, I think that would have been better than the beard for me. But
I'd agree. So I'm happy to take Nuno through plainly on the basis of the beard.
We are picking the smallest little things to decide these, and I love it.
Yeah, but it's got to be done because some of them are quite tough. I mean, the Klopp Hasenhüttl one was very close, and I'd say that Solskjaer Nuno one was quite close. But we now do have a last 16 lineup now that Parker, Hasenhüttl, Allardyce, and Nuno have filled in the empty slots. So the last 16 game number 1 is Dean Smith versus Scott Parker. I know who Twitter voted on this, and they voted in favour of Dean Smith. Do you agree with that?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
I mean, judging from images, I quite like what Dean Smith wears on the touchline.
Yeah.
I mean,
I've still got a jacket in my head, though. That's the problem. I can't.
Yeah.
I'm only thinking of purely of one game with Scott Parker, but it's enough to see him win the whole thing, that one game.
You see, that's what we've got to get away from. It can't just be based off one game, because some of the times Scott Parker doesn't have that jacket. I mean, it's only once he's worn it. Dean Smith's a constant figure with what he wears on the touchline. He's got a blazer on. He's got like almost a body warmer sort of thing on underneath. And that just looks smart. And at the end of the day, if we do have to go down to managerial ability, which we're trying to stray away from, I'd say he's probably the better manager out of the two.
Again, no, I think I do love the Scott Parker jacket, as I've said, but as well as the other thing I've said is that I am quite biased towards managers wearing suits because I'm quite traditional on that.
Yeah,
I'm quite traditional with my football. I like starting 11s to be 1 to 11. I like my manager to wear a suit.
Yeah.
So that I think Parker just tips it for me because he wears a suit.
Yeah, I'd fully back that. Dean Smith is one of those traditional managers, grown up in Birmingham. He's a big footballing part of the world. He's going to have that traditional backing. He was the same at Walsall, the same at Brentford, and he's brought it all to Villa. He's a boyhood Villa fan at the end of the day. And I think, he was already in my head, and I know Twitter voted for Dean Smith. And for me, he goes through. If you're agreed on that.
I think this is the first disagreement. I think I'm still Parker purely because of the suit, to be honest. Although I do like the Dean Smith get-up.
Oh, this could be a tricky one to decide.
We haven't really thought this through. We haven't really thought this through on what happens if we disagree.
How are we going to decide this? Because we need a win.
We were kind of relying on John being here to have a majority.
Is it going to be league table position?
I think if we're falling back onto touchline persona, then if we're not doing it off the Luke, where am I from? Bolton?
You see, if we're going off touchline persona, I'd vote Parker because Dean Smith's quite lazy. He just gets John Terry and Craig Shakespeare to do it all.
Yeah, that's the point I was going to make. I think we've got to fall back on the. I think if we're level on the appearance, then we're going to have to look back to persona, which I think Parker takes it.
I'd agree with that. And if we're going on overall attractiveness, is Dean Smith ginger or not?
I think he probably used to be. I think he's going a bit grey now.
Right, we're voting Parker. I'd go with that, especially for persona on the touchline, because Parker rallies his troops. He knows his group of players and knows how to fire them up. And we'll go Scott Parker. We'll go Scott Parker. Next game is, I think, possibly going to be an easy one. I mean, it's two managers that have been around the block quite a while now. Steve Bruce versus Jose Mourinho.
Interesting one.
It is an interesting one. For me, I would say Mourinho.
Yeah,
I mean, he's been there and done it all, really, in the Premier League. Jose Mourinho, he's won the title with Chelsea twice. He's took Man United to Europa League finals. He's done very good. Well, he did good things. It's just, I don't know with Mourinho. It's just his character in general. It's a bit of a knob, really, in a way. But
it's a nice way of putting it.
It's a nice way.
The clean way of putting it.
Then again, with Bruce, he's just dull.
Yeah, I think I'll go Mourinho. I think Bruce is just bog standard, really. It's just,
and again, persona on the touchline.
It's just oversized coat
on the
with a badge on it.
If persona on the touchline comes into it, I'm going with Mourinho plainly for that thing where he just sprinted from his dugout and ran straight into the face of the fourth official against Man City last season.
Yeah,
I think that does it for me.
Yeah, I think Mourinho does it for me, but I do have to say, I think if we were going off the previous Newcastle manager of Rafa Benitez, I think he would take it over Mourinho.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Great looks on the touchline.
I would love to see. I'd love to see Rafa back in the Premier League. Love to see it.
I mean, the potential for the Palace job becoming available in
quite possibly,
over
but
the summer.
I'd see Palace being quite traditional now and appointing an English manager.
Gone Stevie left.
Possibly.
Have a trial in the Premier League before you come to Liverpool in 2024.
So next one, we've got David Moyes versus Ralph Hasenhüttl. Hasenhüttl's already got past the prelim round. Can he get into the last 8? Yes, for me. I mean, David Moyes, if it was David Moyes of his first West Ham era, where he wore a suit and tie on the touchline, then maybe he'd have got through. But I don't know. David Moyes, how old is he? Is he nearly 60? He's got to be pushing 60, hasn't he? Yeah. I mean, a 60 in a tracksuit. I mean, that just doesn't work.
Yeah, some sort of managers in suits is slowly dying off, unfortunately, in favour of tracksuits.
Yeah, but it just doesn't work for Moyes. I just thought he'd be the traditional suit and tie sort of bloke, but clearly not. And I don't think tracksuit works on him.
No. I mean, I think from what I've discovered now is that pretty much because it's such a rare occurrence, if anyone's got a suit on now, I'm probably putting them through at this point. Hence why Parker was over Smith.
Yeah, but I think the next so we're going with Hasenhüttl to go through. So the next game I'd say is quite an interesting one because this could go either way. We've got Marcello Bielsa versus Brendan Rodgers. Now, this guy, I can't be torn between the two here, really. I think this is a tough one for
this is a
last
very
16.
Tough one.
I mean, there's the traditional Bielsa squat. I mean, that's got to be taken into account in the persona on the touchline. I mean, the fact that he's been in the UK 3 years now and still can't speak a word of English, that's got to be. But he still manages to get his message across somehow to his Leeds players because Leeds play some of the best football in the Premier League, supposedly.
Well, they're entertaining to watch, definitely.
They are entertaining to watch, and I feel that they could push for Europe next season, judging Bielsa stays, because they've got the talent, and if they've got they've got room for possible reinforcement in the future, possibly. So who knows? But I know with Leicester, Brendan Rodgers was a brilliant appointment for them. I mean, they had manager like Claude Puel, and then they'd sack him and appoint Rodgers. That's a big upgrade.
Yeah.
And Rodgers is quite a traditional manager. You see him wearing his suits and a waistcoat. And for me, it's tough, this. We might have to go to the different subcategories.
I'm tough. It's tough, this one, because I have literally just said about suits again, because I'm a traditionalist when it comes to football. Apparently, my mindset is as a middle-aged fan who's watched football since the 70s or something. And I can go on about how the game's gone with challenges and like numbers 1 to 11 for starting lineup. But so apparently I'm just very old. But Yeah, I do like the suit, but I have to say, just how many other managers have got a bucket? That's the question.
Exactly. And drink a cup of coffee on the. Well, we don't know what Bielsa drinks on the touchline. Is it tea? Is it coffee? Or is it water? Who knows?
Irish coffee, probably.
I reckon he's brought his own batch from Argentina, personally. Some special Argentinian coffee with probably some hints of, I don't know, just to make him even better manager. I mean, the glasses as well for Bielsa, just the way they look on his face, it just makes him look a picture. I'm drawn towards Bielsa, personally.
Yeah, I think.
I mean, we're going away from the fact that you're more of a traditionalist with the suit and tie, but for me, if we're talking overall attractiveness, I think Bielsa's just a sexy man. That's Argentinian flair.
Harry would agree with you on that one, yes, definitely.
So we're going to say Bielsa. Are we agreement in that?
Yeah. Bielsa goes. I mean, as much as I've said about being traditionalist, like I said, how many other managers have a bucket?
Exactly.
It's like if we're putting Allardyce through for an earpiece, we've got to put Bielsa through for a bucket.
Absolutely. And talking of Sam Allardyce, he is in the next last 16 game where he takes on Carlo Ancelotti. Again, another tough one because they're two elderly men. You're going to have to take your non-bias here, being a Liverpool fan, and he's the Everton manager. But Ancelotti just possesses an element of flair with his outfits, I think. Yes, we're getting away from the question. Sam Allardyce has an earpiece, and he has to communicate with someone in the stand.
Like most Italians in football, really, Ancelotti just kind of oozes class. Like Andrea Pirlo is another one.
Absolutely, oozes class, oozes flair, and put him in on an Everton touchline. It's just he looks out of place on an Everton touchline, but for me, he's one of the best dressed managers, I think. I mean, yes, he has white hair and he's probably in his 60s now, but it doesn't pose away the fact if David Moyes was dressed like Ancelotti, I think he'd have beaten Hasenhüttl.
Yeah,
but I'm saying Ancelotti on there, but Allardyce does have an earpiece, but that can't be the sole reason he goes through.
So the earpiece is the only reason that's not completely decided for me already.
Yeah,
that's the only reason Allardyce has a chance. Got to be Ancelotti. I can't preach about being traditionalist and want managers in suits and then not pick Ancelotti because he just sums that up perfectly.
Yeah. Right. Next game we have.
It's a shame the dugout he's in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for you it is. I think he's a brilliant manager for Everton and shows their intent.
So do I. I think he's a brilliant. That's why I don't like him. That's why I don't like him.
Because he's a brilliant manager. Absolutely.
He's a brilliant manager. That's why it annoys me that he's at Everton.
So the next last 16 game, we have Graham Potter going up against Pep Guardiola. Again, another tough game, I'd say. Pep Guardiola, I don't know about him because as of late, he's been wearing a grey hoodie on the touchline.
This one's close for the wrong week and the wrong reasons to me because Potter's just bog standard should get beaten by most other people in the draw, but Pep's got arguably the worst outfits out of all the managers.
Yeah, I mean, you can't turn up as a Premier League manager in a hoodie that you'd like wear to your local park. You can't
as well.
You can't wear a grey hooded jumper that you'd have bought from the Manchester City store. I mean, that's something you'd go down the Trafford Centre in, not manage a Premier League football match in.
Yeah.
I mean, for that reason alone, I'm tempted to say Graham Potter. I mean, Graham Potter does wear full kit, and that's got to be a deciding factor. But the hoodie alone for Pep Guardiola, it's no for me.
Yeah, I think with the problem we have with this one, I think we've had so many that have been quite close. I think realistically, the way the draws worked out, these two are both getting knocked out early on, but just somehow ended up. This is like the equivalent, I think, of when a couple of League Two sides get each other in the FA Cup third round draw.
Yeah,
and you see a couple of League Two sides get together, and you got like some of the other ones, and then you see two Premier League sides go together. We've had on the other half of the draw, but yeah, these two realistically, I wouldn't see either of them getting through the next round. So I don't think it matters who we put through, to be honest. But
I mean, if we were voting from a different perspective on technical ability, they'd both be right up there because the way Brighton play for a bottom side, they should be pushing more towards the top half. It's just the fact they can't score goals because they play some good football. They've got a good squad, good young squad. And
so we've been saying for weeks, haven't we? Give them a striker, they're top half probably.
Absolutely, you give him a good striker that's not Neil Maupay or Danny Welbeck, but then again, they're starting to pick up a bit of form as of late. especially Danny Welbeck. He's been there, here, there, and everywhere. Come to Brighton, he's thriving almost. But we're not talking off ability. We're talking off general persona. And again, if we're talking persona, Guardiola just sits on his dugout all the time. He's never.
I'm putting Potter through just because I can't bring myself to put Pep's dreadful turtlenecks through.
I agree. Next game, I think this one should be a pretty easy one again. We've got Roy Hodgson versus Nuno. I don't think we can agree that seeing Roy Hodgson anywhere other than the last 16 would be beneficial. I mean, he's been knocked out of the last 16 in France in 2016. He's going to be knocked out of the tournament here.
It would have been fitting if Nuno was Icelandic.
It would be, but it was England versus Portugal. But for me, I think this is a no-brainer to put Nuno through. I mean, Roy Hodgson is 70 now, for goodness sake. He can't be going for much longer in terms of football management. But I think the majority of Palace fans
as we were saying earlier,
want him gone.
Yeah, as we were saying earlier, it looks like his job might become available in the summer after another poor season for Palace.
Yeah, and you mentioned about possibly Steven Gerrard getting that job, which would be probably a step towards the Liverpool job in the future, which may be good for him, but then he's not going to get that European football experience with Crystal Palace. He'll be in a relegation scrap most seasons. But will that show the making of Steven Gerrard? Quite possibly, yes.
Maybe.
But
I think he does need to take another job because I think it's definitely going to be him when Klopp's contract runs out in 2024. So I think he needs to take another job because if not, we're going to have a Lampard situation, I fear.
Yeah, quite possibly. But in terms of Palace, if someone was to replace Roy Hodgson, which I think in the near future may well be possible, there's three people that sticks to mind. I mean, you've said Gerrard. I think that will be a good one. Eddie Howe's currently not employed and isn't looking for management until the summer. But Sean Dyche has always been on Palace's radar for a few years, but I don't see why he would want to go from a side that's in and around the same area as Palace.
Yeah, it's hardly an upgrade, is it?
I mean, yes, Palace will give him more money to spend, but not much more. But if Dyche leaves it, I'd cry. But for the purpose of this, tournament, Nuno goes through, beard related again, and the fact that Roy's
goes through quite comfortably. Really, I'm not sure it's down to the beard. I think it's never really a competition, that one.
And our final last 16 game is another tough one. We've got arguably the two supposed sexiest managers in football. We've got Mikel Arteta versus Sean Dyche. I know where I stand on this, but I'm going to try and not be biased here. I mean, Sean Dyche just gives it the touchline, always winds up everyone, the opposition manager, the fourth official, always in the face. He's ginger, he's got a croaky voice. How can that not win?
To be honest, I'm trying. And it's another one. It's unfortunate. That's how random draws go.
It is unfortunate them to have come together.
How we got Potter and Pep together, who are both destined for last 16 elimination, and then we've got Dyche and Arteta, who could easily be semi-finalists or maybe finalists down the line.
That's the wonders of this draw. It was randomised, and unfortunately, possible two finalists have been drawn together in the last 16. But Mikel Arteta he's been judged as to be one of the most attractive managers on the touchline. Just that the scowl alone that he makes when something's not going his way.
Different and very different to the previous Arsenal manager.
Yeah, good evening. But yeah, for me, it's probably the closest one we've had. That one and the Bielsa Rodgers one are probably the closest two we've had. And they're both on different sides of the draw as well, which makes it interesting. But for me, I'd go Dyche. It's not bias at all. I hand on heart, it's not bias. But the podcast is Dyche themed. If we're not FIFA, we're not going to rig it. But if he doesn't win, we're changing back to world class waffle. But
no, I'd agree. Again, just the suit because I'm traditional.
Yeah, I mean, he has had some players have taken the piss out of Dyche's stupid jacket that he wears all the time.
Yeah, the jacket's not great, but at least it's a suit.
And he wears a Casio watch. But nothing wrong with that. And Dyche makes it through to the last 8. So, quarter-final, number 1. We have Scott Parker versus Jose Mourinho. What are we thinking on that one? See, this is where it's going to get difficult now because it's going to
put them through now. Realistically, all these are going to be close apart from whatever one Potter's in because he only got through because he was against Pep.
Yeah, but this is a tough one. We can't go off Scott Parker's jacket, really.
No.
Because we've done that for the last 2. That's basic quarterfinal stage. I think we're going to have to stray towards more persona and overall attractiveness. Because tactically, you can't really do that either because they've both got different styles of play. Mourinho's is meh, and Parker's is just try to play good football, but it doesn't really work.
Yeah, the issue is so if we're trying, I think we're going to get pulled different directions on each of those points. If you're doing it based on touchline presence or persona, then there's got to be Mourinho. And if you're doing it on, and as we said multiple times, that he's deemed the most attractive manager in the league, so you've got to go for Scott Parker the other way. So we're kind of stuck in between the 2 again.
I know. So we may have to think of another way to decide this, but like you said, persona, it's definitely Mourinho because he just Mourinho on the touchline. It's quite comical in a way. Yeah. Just seeing him moan all the time and just Mourinho in just Spurs just doing badly. It's just funny. It's funny. Yeah. And I think there's one I'd like to bring into play here with Mourinho. I mean, just seeing him in the All or Nothing Tottenham Netflix, Amazon Prime series, just him behind the scenes, he's the same sort of character behind the scenes as he is on the touchline. Doesn't give a stuff really. I don't want to swear because I don't want to beef it. He doesn't give a toss really. Which for me is probably the reason I put him through. He's got that.
Yeah.
Doesn't give a crap.
I think I'm just with Mourinho on this one as well.
That was, well, at least we've managed to decide on that one because the next one is Hasenhüttl versus Bielsa. And I don't know again. It's getting tough. Yeah. It's getting tough to decide this.
Again, this one's quite similar again. It's basically cap versus bucket. Other than that, it's the same.
Cap and gloves because Hasenhüttl has won glove. He looks like a proper roadman on the touchline, does Hasenhüttl, especially in winter. With that cap, his beard, all in black, with those Under Armour gloves on, he looks like a proper roadman. And Bielsa looks like your granddad who needs a stool to sit on because he can't walk. I mean, like you said, it's bucket versus cap. And
yeah, they're quite similar other than that, really, aren't they?
And we can't really bring it down to which country I prefer because Argentina versus Austria, I don't like either of them. And they're both just as pretty, really, in terms of scenery and troubled pasts. So we can't really go off that. So we're going to have to go off overall attractiveness, really, for this one.
I'm thinking if it's between bucket and cap, bucket's more unique, but cap looks better on the touchline, I think. So I'd go Hasenhüttl.
The bucket is iconic, but I don't know. Bielsa, especially if we're going off him wearing the glasses and when it was raining, just the steamed up glasses, that's just a no, and that would rule Bielsa out because he just looks stupid. But I would back Hasenhüttl to go through. I'm happy to go through with that. I mean, he pulls off a cap very well, Hasenhüttl, on the touchline, especially with his roadman look as well. As I've been saying, it just looks like a good Premier League manager on the touchline. I mean, I'd be struggling to see Hasenhüttl in a suit. Yeah. I'd struggle to look that image.
I judge you. You're the cap expert, so if you say it looks good, then
he can pull it off.
I'll trust you on that.
He can pull it off. So I think the next one could be a no-brainer because we've got Ancelotti versus Potter.
There's no point. There's no point even talking about this one. Ancelotti's through.
Ancelotti.
There's no point. We might as well save the time.
There's no point trying to argue that one. But the next one, again, is another tough one. It's Nuno Espirito Santo versus Sean Dyche. Again, a tough one because one pulls off a beard very well. One pulls off being ginger very well. One's Portuguese,
harder to do.
One's English. One has a very aggressive persona on the touchline. One has a more calm approach in the form of Nuno. Dyche quite aggressive on the touchline. One has a croaky voice. One has a Portuguese accent. It's which we prefer out of all of those. And no bias aside, I don't know actually for this one. I don't know.
I'm undecided on this one at the moment, but leaning slightly more towards Dyche, I think, because I'm just purely going down the persona route because I think it's quite difficult to compare through the touchline get up. I think I'm leaning more towards Dyche because of his persona more than anything. You think Nuno's quite quiet, really, isn't he? You think as a goalkeeper he'd be used to screaming at, well, especially the defensive game. That I think he'd be quite vocal as a keeper, but he's quite calm on the touchline.
I mean, the fact that he can't actually manage anything other than Portuguese nationalities is a down Nuno's part. But we're not. That's not
say the same thing about Dyche in English, to be honest.
Well, our whole squad's not English. I mean, yes, it's probably about 80% English or Irish.
It's probably about the same. It's probably about the same percentage that Wolves is Portugal, to be honest.
Yeah, but again, it's promoting from within and not giving Brexit the opportunity to ruin football. Because Burnley stick by the Brexit rules, promote from within the Football League, and promote from the English game. But I don't know. I like Nuno's beard. I really like Nuno's beard. I think he pulls it off really well. But it's Dyche, isn't it? It's just. I don't know. This is tough.
I think this would be good.
This would be useful for have John in this situation because
there's been a couple of these. There's been a couple,
and we need a deciding vote because
your strength. This is similar to the.
Me being a Burnley
similar
fan,
to the Smith
straight towards Dyche is a bit criminal on my behalf, but I don't know. It's just Nuno's beard that pulls it off for me.
Yeah, I think this is similar to the Smith Parker one we had, where it was settled. I've made my decision based on persona because I was undecided, and I've done the same thing here. And if it's doing persona, it's got to be Dyche for me.
Again, if we're talking persona, I'd go Dyche because he is much vocal on the touchline. He's probably one of the most vocal Premier League managers.
I think they're quite equal. Other than that, really, it's just that he's so far leaning in Dyche's favour. Persona it just tips him over the edge overall, I think.
But then again, Nuno pulls off a beard better in terms of attractiveness. And if we're talking what they wear on the touchline, I don't know. Dyche never changes what he wears. He always wears the same thing week in, week out. There's no variations or anything. So I don't know if that would have an impact on our deciding vote. I don't know.
I'm not sure now. This is the toughest one. This might be the toughest one we have the whole time, apart from maybe the final, because obviously we'd have put them through so many more rounds.
Yeah. I'm drawn towards. Let's vote on categories. If we're talking persona on the touchline, it's Dyche all the way.
Dyche, yeah.
If we're talking overall attractiveness, who do we say there? I'd say Nuno.
Yeah, I'd go give it to Nuno probably, yeah.
And if we're talking what they wear on the touchline, that's the tough one to decide it. Because Dyche wears the same thing out. But then again, Nuno kind of does as well.
They're both with his coat. There's not much variation in there, but if you're asking me to decide the difference between the two, then I think I still just go Dyche because I'm clearly quite biased towards the suit.
I'm going to take your word on this because I don't want to seem biased on this in this situation towards Dyche. So I will go with you with Dyche, plainly for the purpose that you've managed to decide this based on what they wear.
Yeah.
I mean, Dyche pulls off.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think what I did. I think the reason why I quite go towards suit. If I was a manager, I think I'd definitely be one who turns up in a suit rather than a tracksuit or a random jacket. Like Scott Parker.
Yeah.
I might stick an earpiece. I might stick an earpiece in after seeing Sam Allardyce today as well, to be honest.
Imagine seeing a Sunday League manager with an earpiece in. That would just epitomise Britain. It would. But we're going with Dyche. Dyche makes it into the semi-finals.
If I get injured for our five-a-side team and can't play 1 week, I'll turn up in my suit on the touchline.
You'd pull it off. You would pull it off, and you'd look a bit like Dean Smith on the touchline almost.
Yeah, I probably would, to be honest.
You'd look like Dean Smith. That's the sort of approach I can see you taking.
Similar Barnett.
Yeah, pretty much. Let's go to the semi-finals. And semi-final number 1 is Jose Mourinho versus Ralph Hasenhüttl. So for the semi-finals, I think we pretty much go off the 3 categories that I mentioned at the start. Persona, attractiveness, and what they wear. So let's go persona first. For persona, I'd go Mourinho. Although
I don't think nobody in the league beats Mourinho, for being honest.
No, absolutely not. But Hasenhüttl can give it some on the touchline, but nowhere near as Mourinho.
If you had to rank the 20 in order, Mourinho's clearly number 1, but Hasenhüttl is definitely up there.
He is. He's probably in the top 5.
It's close, but nobody beats Mourinho at the end of the day.
Absolutely not. Overall attractiveness, I'm leaning towards Hasenhüttl because Mourinho's balding.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
he is.
We took the mick out of Thomas Tuchel's hairline. We should take the mick out of Mourinho's growing bald spot.
That possibly should have come up earlier. The fact that Mourinho is balding. But
clearly, you like a beard as well. We've learned.
I do like a beard, and Ralph Hasenhüttl does pull off a beard well. So it comes down to the final category again. What they wear on the touchline. I mean, these two wear different things on the touchline. It was the same with the Nuno and Dyche one. Hasenhüttl wears tracksuit. Mourinho wears a suit almost.
Yeah, I think with Mourinho, like when he was at Chelsea, the first spells particularly, I think he would have walked probably the whole thing for me. But just I'm not sure what I think about the Spurs tracksuit he has at the moment. Nothing against the badge on it, obviously, but just not sure that it's almost like manager turning up in the training kit. I think really.
I mean, I'm having a look of a picture here on Google of what Mourinho wore for the Spurs Man United game at the last weekend, and he had a big coat on, but then he had a jumper which was like a half zip jumper, and I don't like those kind of jumpers. I mean, yes, he's an aging bloke, and he pulls it off okay. But if we're talking us voting on it, it goes to Hasenhüttl for me.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with you on that one.
So we're going for Hasenhüttl into the final, which is interesting. Semi-final is Carlo Ancelotti versus Sean Dyche. And I will say this for a fact, this was one of the semi-finals that Twitter decided on. So this side of the draw has got spot on so far. How do we vote on this one again? We're going to have to go persona, attractiveness, and what they wear.
I mean, to be honest, I think I'm leaning. I think just the Italian class is calling to me again. I think Ancelotti might be a finalist for me.
Yeah, I would possibly agree with that. But if we're going persona, Dyche wins that. If we're going more towards attractiveness, that's a tough one because one's old and one's ginger. So how do we decide on that? And then they wear similar things on the touchline. Again, they both wear a suit and tie.
If you're going down the appearance, they're both suit and tie, but Ancelotti doesn't have the dodgy jacket that Dyche does.
Yeah, I agree. Let me just try and find a picture of Ancelotti on Google to try and justify this stance that we're taking. Yeah, Ancelotti for me. I'm sorry, Dyche, but it is Ancelotti.
It's just like I say, Italians just ooze class, don't they? Especially the older ones.
Yeah, and he's been around the block a long time, Ancelotti. He has changed. He's not always worn that, but I think he pulls it off well in England, especially.
Yeah,
that sort of look.
It's just how it works. It's just the Italian way, and it's just quite classy in Italy. Even like Mancini, he's not the most classy manager, but he looks quite classy on a touchline when he's managing Italy.
Yeah, but then again, you've got Italian managers like Antonio Conte, who had no class whatsoever on the touchline. Well, fake hair. In a way, yes, but then again, Conte wore suit and tie on some occasions, an all black suit and tie, black jacket and stuff. But then again, sometimes he was just wearing a tracksuit. So
I think
it's two different questions.
There's two types of Italians, I think. There's the Contes and the Sarris that are just a bit mental. And then there's the more composed ones like Ancelotti and I said Andrea Pirlo as well. He's obviously a manager now.
I think Gennaro Gattuso as well wears a similar sort of thing to Pirlo and Ancelotti, which goes towards the more classy side of Italian. But Ancelotti makes it into our final. So we've got Italy versus Austria in the final. Southampton versus Everton. Hasenhüttl versus Ancelotti. So we've got a team that's lost 9-0 this season and a bias, possibly, opinion. So
it's a team who's lost 9-0 twice in 2 seasons against a team who won the league after 4 games.
Yeah. That's... Yeah. So, persona on the touchline. That one, for me, strays towards Hasenhüttl.
Yeah, that's well, it's quite a close one, but I think Hasenhüttl edges it.
Yeah, but there was the one incident with Ancelotti where he had to go at Chris Kavanagh for a VAR incident last year that springs to mind of him going up to the referee and getting sent off.
Yeah, a lot of the activity from the Everton dugout is usually Duncan Ferguson as opposed to Ancelotti.
If we're voting Duncan Ferguson, he'd win this hands down. But it's not.
Compete with Mourinho, definitely.
He's not. It's Ancelotti, and if we're going persona, it's Hasenhüttl. So that's 1-0 to Hasenhüttl in the final. Overall attractiveness. Ancelotti, again, just Italian class, just style. Yeah. Yes, he's old.
Whips his eyebrows up every point in an interview when he answers a question as well, which
pretty much.
I was going to do an impression, but I can't do it.
There's no point trying to do an Italian accent because we'll probably get demonetized or something.
I've said since episode 1, I'll leave all the accents to you.
Yeah, and I'm not even going to try that because I'll get us demonetized.
If you want to attempt it and look stupid, I'll leave you to it.
I'll pass on that on that behalf. This is a tough one actually for overall attractiveness because how old is Ancelotti? Let me just have a look.
Why don't we move on to
59 was when he was born, so that's 62.
I think this could be the deciding thing, really, because for me, I think if you're going on touchline get up, then I think I'd go Ancelotti just again because
I'd agree with that.
His class, doesn't it?
It goes for overall attractiveness.
This is kind of the decider now. How have we come down to this? We've sat here for 40 minutes discussing managers, and ultimately we're finishing the episode by discussing who we think is more attractive out of Ralph Hasenhüttl and Carlo Ancelotti. I don't think we'd be here after 19 episodes.
Yeah. So we've got a bloke who's 51 in Hasenhüttl and a bloke who's 62 in the form of Ancelotti. I mean, if we're talking for their age, Hasenhüttl hasn't got a spot of grey on him.
No.
For a 51-year-old. I mean, he's got a grey beard, but there's nothing wrong with that. It works well. He's got a mix of a grey and brown beard, which works a treat really for him. But his hair, he's 51 and he hasn't 50. Did I say 54? I think.
No idea. 51, I think.
Born in 67.
No, 54, or 53 or 54, depending on when his birthday is.
53. His birthday's in August. So he's 53 and he hasn't got a grey patch. I mean, he must be doing something right. Or, when did Ancelotti start going grey? He was grey when he was at Chelsea, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. I think he was still
about
grey
10 years
at Chelsea.
ago. That was about 10 years ago.
I suppose it doesn't matter, though, does it? It depends if you pull it off or not.
He does pull off a grey, but if we're talking on terms of age, I mean, Hasenhüttl's 54 now, not a single grey in his hair. Ancelotti, when he was at Chelsea about 10 years ago, he was fully grey, and he would have been about the same age Hasenhüttl is now.
It's tough, but I think I'm just edging Ancelotti, I think.
See, I was edging more Hasenhüttl, but this is where it's tough.
We've bottled it in the final. We've gone the whole way, and we've bottled it in the final.
See, that's the thing I'm trying to gauge. It's Ancelotti was when he was what year was he at Chelsea? It was 2013, was it? Or was it before that?
Yeah. Was he? No, he wasn't.
No, it was
after. He
won the title, didn't he? He won the title in 09-10, didn't he, with Chelsea?
Yeah. Oh, might be longer than that.
And he was sacked in 2012. Sacked in 2011 because that's when Andre Villas-Boas came in.
Oh yeah.
and then Di Matteo won the Champions League. So yeah, it was 09-010 that Ancelotti won the title with Chelsea. Let's have a look at see with a picture what he looked like there. He seeps more class now at Everton. A lot more class, because what he wears, I've just seen one picture of Ancelotti wearing a cap, and that doesn't work. But this was 2010.
The question is, are you judging it overall? Or are you judging it now? Because you have to look at Leipzig, Hasenhüttl as well.
Yeah, I will get a comparison of that, of Ralph Hasenhüttl. And if we're talking comparisons, I don't know. I don't know. Again, he's got the whole roadman look again with that black coat and gloves. Do we have a deciding vote on this? I mean, there was nothing to separate.
Effectively, we should have predicted we're both going to go opposite ways here, because it's close from what we've been saying throughout the episode. But you're going to lean more towards the beer, and I'm going to lean more towards the suit. So,
I mean,
I would say
for you,
if we're undecided,
should be a hint of bias in you choosing an Everton person as. So, seeing as you're being non-biased, I'm happy to go with Ancelotti. Because you're being non-biased as a Liverpool fan.
If we're undecided, obviously you mentioned the Twitter polls. Ancelotti did go further than Hasenhüttl, so
he did.
Clearly
Ancelotti got to the final on Twitter.
Our Twitter followers clearly side slightly more towards me, but he did get beaten by Brendan Rodgers in the final.
And Brendan Rodgers couldn't even get it out of the last 16 in our go.
Yeah, so
Ancelotti it is then, as the winner of the World Cup of Managers, not based on abilities, but it was a close final, that, and I'm surprised that Hasenhüttl didn't get further in our Twitter poll. But obviously, people have a different buzz, and I have a feeling that on our Twitter polls, people will have just clicked on him. Yeah. And for many of the Twitter polls, people didn't actually find them because of the thread.
I feel quite bad for Jurgen Klopp, to be honest, because he looks basically the exact same get up as Hasenhüttl when he got knocked down in the prelim because they got against each other.
Because Hasenhüttl can pull off a beard and a cap better than Klopp. That's the only reason.
I think Klopp probably would have been in the final.
And we'd have had a quite easily met.
Yeah, they could have quite easily met in a semi-final or something, but they met in the prelim.
Yep.
Just unfortunate. That's why they go.
It is unfortunate, but that's the look of the draw. But at the end of the day, Carlo Ancelotti is our winner. He was Twitter's runner-up to Brendan Rodgers, who had the majority in the final with a 67-33 advantage. And we voted him out for Bielsa. I mean, let me just try and find.
He doesn't have a bucket. I mean, to be fair, admittedly,
Rodgers won by 75-25 in the Twitter poll.
Convincingly, then.
Bielsa only got one vote, and I feel like that might have been young Harry.
Probably. Probably was, yeah.
We've tried to do this in the most professional manner possible. It was just a bit of a laugh as the first episode back on. From next week, we should have John back, and we should be creating a bit more professional content.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. But for now,
it's a bit of a laugh. You can have it's like a few weeks ago, and before we moved on to sport, we just went through effectively meme stories for a week. It's nice to have it with a little bit of light-hearted entertainment every once in a while.
It's good to have a fun episode here.
A lot of the time, news is more negative than it is positive. Like managers getting sacked who didn't deserve it, or those sort of things. There's not even in sport. It's more. I'd say it's not. It's more so negative. It's nice to just block it up in 1 week. Just a bit of a laugh, isn't it? None of it's taken seriously. We weren't actually sitting here considering much seriously about it. Like we just put Bielsa through because he got a bucket. It's just a bit of a laugh.
I mean, going back to that first prelim game of Parker versus Wilder, that should have been Parker brainer really, because Wilder didn't even manage in the Premier League anymore. So that should have just been Parker versus Smith all along. But anyhow, we voted on it. But anyhow, we've got to a final, and it was Ancelotti, Hasenhüttl, and Everton came out on top. Are Everton going to get into the Champions League or Europa League in the real Premier League? Who knows? Because there's still 7 games to play. And it's very, very open. It's very open. It'll be interesting to see. Just as a matter of fact, who do you think will get the final 2 positions in the Champions League and the 3 Europa League places?
Well, as we're recording this, about an hour ago, West Ham lost to Newcastle, which has shaken things up a bit. But I think I'll make a more realistic prediction after I know the score between West Ham and Chelsea next weekend, because that is a massive game. I think at the moment I would go Chelsea, probably would take third in the Premier League. And then I'd like to think, and given the fixtures we've got left, it makes sense rather than bias. I'd say Liverpool fourth, West Ham and Leicester to battle out for. I think West Ham have had quite a few injuries at unfortunate times, so
and they might have lost
fifth.
Lingard.
So yeah, one of them. Yeah, so Leicester fifth because of their last three fixtures. I reckon they'll probably be in the top four, and then the last three will cost them it. West Ham's injuries will see them fall apart and get sixth, and then I would go Everton seventh because Spurs are Spurs.
Yeah. So if it were me, I'd still go Chelsea third. I think, yes, Chelsea have got to go to Man City, and they've still got to play Leicester as well at home. Well, I think they've still got to play Arsenal.
Leicester, to be honest.
Chelsea's fixtures, realistically, are not easy, but.
Yeah, the problem thing is with Chelsea though, their fixtures aren't easy. The one, other than you can see them winning them, apart from maybe City, which is should get them. They can afford to lose to City and still get over the line for me.
I think Chelsea will be third. It depends. If Leicester can win their next four of West Brom, Palace, Southampton, and Newcastle, I think they get top four. But if they slip up in one or two of them games, even if it's just a draw in one of them, it puts them in the Europa League, and I think it'd be Liverpool for me. But judging by West Ham's fixtures remaining, they've actually not got bad fixtures. I mean, yes, they've got Chelsea, they've got us, Burnley, they've got Everton, Brighton, West Brom and Southampton. I mean, realistically, that should be about 12 points.
I think, realistically, it's a better thing. It'll be better for us to discuss this next week, knowing the score in Chelsea-West Ham, because if West Ham lose that could be curtains for them. But if Chelsea lose, that keeps the West Ham win, or it's a draw, that keeps the race entertaining for the last few. So I think maybe we'll be best placed to do better predictions next week.
Yeah, and obviously there's the final Europa Conference League place to be decided, but that will likely go to Spurs. But who knows yet? It's too early to tell. But anyway, the first episode of the Handbags, Manbags, Bumbags podcast has been recorded. Make sure to go and follow us on Spotify, Handbags, Manbags podcast, also on YouTube. Changing to Handbags, Manbags podcast. Twitter, we will post a new link in our Twitter feed. It will likely be HMB Podcast, the new Twitter handle. But we will confirm that with you on Monday, as this is going out. You would have seen the promo video earlier in the day, launching the new podcast title and the more sporting approach that we are going for. But for now, it's goodbye from episode 19. We will see you next week for episode 20. So take care, stay safe, and ta-ra.
Bye.